it is 6:05. We're going to have some folks pouring in probably over the next few moments. But for anybody who is here who wants to, for basically the structure of this is going to be, we're going to have a little moment. We're going to set some intentions, set our space, set our individual vibes, our bodies and minds to prime, the mind, soul, body, your space, your mojo dojo casa house, as it were. And then we're going to go into discussion mode where we have the lovely Reg will be moderating between Patria and myself. Some getting into it. And then at the end, we're going to close with kind of like a very goofy, joyful, somatic movement, sort of like a soul calibration moment that is designed and led by yours truly. So get ready to move at the end because we're going to shake it out, because we're going to get into it first and then we're going to shake it out.
All right. So from there, we'll start. I'm Patria. Again, this is Janelle. We have Reg and from NAMI Glendale, and also Chris, who's doing the tech from NAMI Glendale as well. And I work with NAMI GLAC CalHope. Happy to see all of you here. I want to share some of the Zoom guidelines, our community guidelines. I dropped it in the chat, and I also sent it in the email if you would like to check it out. I'm just going to read through it really quickly to set the intention. So our safe and supportive space community guidelines. Welcome to our vibrant virtual sanctuary for LGBTQ plus mental wellness. We're thrilled to have you join us for this empowering, enlightening webinar. To ensure everyone feels comfortable sharing their experiences and exploring the intersections of queer identity and mental health, we've created the for engagement, either within the community chat or Q&A portion with compassion and care. So first, let's embrace our authentic selves. Share your thoughts and feelings openly while respecting the unique journeys of others. 2, practice active listening. Truly hear what others have to say, offer support without judgment, honor confidentiality, respect the privacy of personal stories shared in this safe space, cultivate compassion, choose kindness, empathy, and understanding in your words and interactions, foster a supportive environment, uplift and empower each other, celebrate strengths, acknowledge struggles, and offer encouragement. Also, focus on growth, approach discussions with curiosity and a willingness to learn and unlearn. Learn and unlearn. That's very key. Challenge stigma. Speak out against stereotypes and discrimination, both within and outside of our community. Prioritize self-care. Take breaks if needed, and prioritize your well-being throughout the webinar. So please feel free to, if you need to leave, get a drink, do whatever to care. Please be mindful of that. Respect boundaries. Ask for consent before sharing personal information. And there will be sensitive information being discussed throughout the webinar. So a lot of mental health issues that are very serious will be spoken of. So we just want to let you be all mindful of that. And so also, if you need to reach out for your support, if you need additional assistance, you can ask any of us for the resources, which we'll be sharing the resources throughout the webinar. And you could always call our helplines, our CalHope line, for that guidance as well. So thank you. By embracing these guidelines, we can create a transformative space for healing, growth, and connection. Together, we can build a stronger, healthier LGBTQ plus community. And for those who violate those guidelines, we may ask you to leave if you do.
So keep it cute. That's at the end of the day.
Yes.
We have faith and trust in y'all because, again, we know everybody's here for a reason. Either you're part of the queer community, or you're an ally, or you are somebody who understands or is looking to understand more of this experience as it relates to mental health. So
with that experience, we could join our support groups. So we're launching. If you want to pull up the screen, share the screen, Chris, with Glendale's NAMI GLAC support group. We're starting our support group tomorrow. Is the first night at 6 p.m. Right, Reg? We're having the first LGBTQ plus support group for Glendale, the Glendale affiliates. We're really excited about that. I'm one of the facilitators, and Natasha is also the other facilitator. So we're really excited about that. And also, you can go to our NAMI GLAC page to see the our drop down feature, which has a bunch of resources that we just started as well. So it's a great center, not only for a hub of NAMI GLAC support, education, information, and resources, but also an extension of that with the LGBTQ plus community at large. So it's a nice integration, and we're looking forward to the growth of that, and also looking forward to the growth of the support groups that are rolling out with NAMI Glendale. That includes a family-to-family support group for LGBTQ plus family members, or for those who have loved ones living with a mental health condition. So yeah, let's share the screen. There we go. We have it all up there. You can check it out. Feel free to screenshot it if you would like. You could also go to our Instagram or our socials, our main website to look at that. And also, if you go to our chat, we dropped in a form there that you could check out too. So yeah, and we'll be sharing that these resources in the email after. All right. So from there,
I'm going to jump in real quick. I just want to say that the groups start at 6:30. Just to clarify the start time, and just arrive 5 minutes before, just so that you're on time. And that these are for LGBT identifying folks. So if you're LGBTQ plus identifying, these groups will be for you. Some people ask if it's for, like parents of an LGBTQ plus person, for example, but they're actually for people who are part of, who identify as LGBTQ plus. Just clarify that.
Got it. And there will be the family-to-family support group, right? Is that something coming up too?
You mean the LGBTQ plus family support group?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to actually both take place at the same time on Zoom at 6:30 till 8 o'clock, the fourth Thursday of every month. So I'm actually going to be facilitating the family support group for LGBT folks. So
so they'll be happening on the same day, but different meetings. Okay,
different Zoom rooms. Yeah. I'll tell you what our hope is, that maybe by next year we could have one of them be in person and we could all meet at the same location. So that's
what I'm talking about. It's about that IRL community.
Yeah.
Speaking of IRL community, we're doing the best that we can, given the fact that we might all be coming in from all kinds of places. I don't know. So me and Patria, we're in LA. A lot of us are in LA, I assume. We're over here in Los Feliz. Drop wherever you are in the chat, just to let us know where you're at. Maybe there's some community right next door to you don't even know about. One of the things I want to emphasize as we go through this, we're going to talk a lot about like many ways that we face struggles that are both hidden and obvious, that have solutions that have begun to be addressed and solutions that haven't begun to be addressed at all. But one of the biggest things that I can advocate for, I know Patria can speak to, I know Reg and Chris, I'm sure all of us can speak to, the power of literally just being in community with your people. And your people is, whether they're queer people, whether they're people who love the things that you love, whether they're whatever it is, whether it's the people of your culture, find your people and go to them. Just find excuses to be there, to offer something, to show up in whatever way. That's the biggest thing that I can tell you today. Change your life. Change my life. Change everybody's life.
Well, let's get into some transformative breath work.
Absolutely.
And let's start to get into our bodies and prepare to have this discussion.
I love it.
So I'll leave it to you, Janelle, to take us into the next portal.
Hell yeah. Chris, would you mind queuing up that first little track I sent you? Take a second to reroute here in the space.
Get comfortable.
Yes, everybody, while Chris is queuing up our first track here and just giving us some soothing neurodiverse beats that will just help us set the tone here for a moment. Because as we know, we're going to be getting into some stuff. And I just want to take a moment to allow us all to resource our bodies and our minds. So whatever that feels like to you, I encourage you to take this time while this song is playing. Hopefully soon, Chris.
Oh, you're not able to hear this?
No, we cannot hear.
Excuse me, one moment.
We're working on it, girl. Okay. The technology is also resourcing itself as we speak. But yeah, so hopefully while we get this going, Chris, I'll just give you a thumbs up if I start to hear it, because I don't hear it yet, but I assume you're working on it. But while we get this going, just take a moment. I wrote some stuff in the waiting room, so if you were in the waiting room, maybe you read, but I do invite you to take some time to... There she goes. Okay, Chris, maybe a little lower. Just take it lower. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So take some time. We're going to do some breaths. And we're just going to sort of take a moment to, and you can close your eyes. You can turn your camera on. You can turn it off. You can do whatever you want. And I'm just going to lead us in a couple of box breaths. Very simple stuff here, but these box breaths, you can invoke them anytime you need them. Today, during this moment, during the rest of your life. Okay. What we're going to do is I invite you to close your eyes, to plant your feet firmly on the ground. Give a moment to roll your head one way and the other. And back the first way. Back right. And just take a moment to move around in your spine, the juiciness of your spine right here. You know, get the edge. I don't see the juiciness of your spine. I'm looking to see it flow. It's important because we forget a lot of the times that we're not just minds out here that suffer under patriarchy, heteronormative, industrial, military complex, all of these things. But we're also bodies that suffer under the weight of all that we go through. And this is an invitation to give some love back into your body. And to remember that it has brought you here today and that it is strong, child. With that, we take grounding box press. We're just going to do it 3 times. We're going to count us in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold. At 3 times, and do 2. Okay. Close your eyes, work with me. And breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2. Moving it ahead. One last breathing now. Breathing in. 2, 3, hold. 2. And breathing out.
Right.
That was a little invocation or a little invitation to set our bodies and minds and spaces in a way to get us into it.
All right.
Now let us dive on in.
Yes. So I'm going to just read a short intention right here, and then we'll just keep it moving. Again, thank you, Janelle. So you go. I just would like to say this is a call to action for mental health for all, a mandate for equity and accountability. In a world that champions mental health for all, organizations must be held accountable for the authenticity of their commitment. A true call to action transcends rhetoric and demands tangible efforts to dismantle the systemic disparities plaguing the mental health industry. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity. The current socio-political climate necessitates moving beyond individual perspectives and privileges. We challenge organizations to actively engage in the broader dialogue surrounding mental health inequalities that acknowledge the urgent need for change. We ask, how are we as individuals and organizations rising to the occasion to ensure equitable mental health care for the QT, BIPOC community, and all marginalized groups? This call to action is an insistence on accountability, failure to act, provide, and create platforms for communities in need, such as immigrants, people of color, LGBTQ+, and QT BIPOC individuals, renders us complicit in the systemic injustice imposed upon them. These communities require not just acknowledgement, but radical care, a commitment to holding space, amplifying their voices, and advocating on their behalf. We assert that these needs are not only valid, but urgently deserving of attention. This is a call to do better, to go beyond empty words and consider this proposal as an act of radical care for communities that have long been marginalized. Together, through collective efforts and a commitment to change, we can foster a world where mental health for all is not just a slogan, but a lived reality. Let this be our call to action, our pledge to enact change, and our stride toward a future where mental health is truly accessible for everyone. And from there, I want to introduce Reg of NAMI Glendale. We're going to begin the discussion. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and you could start off the conversation.
All right, great. My name is Reg. My pronouns are they, them. And I am a mental health advocate. I've been with NAMI since, I believe it was in 2021 that I started coming to NAMI, and it's been incredible help for me. I'm a family support group facilitator, family support group, or a family to family class leader. And it's just been incredible to be part of this community, to bring, the services that we need, the resources and the information. So that's a little bit about my, background with NAMI. And, I just want to say a quick thank you so much to Janelle and to Patria. They have both put together an incredible conversation and a way to really delve into some topics that both of them feel passionately about. And so you're really getting a little window into their own conversations that I think are going to expose you to some really interesting ideas and help us really understand more about mental health and how things could be. So, and thank you so much. Yeah, and I really appreciated you leading us in a meditation, and we're going to be closing with one too, with Janelle leading us too. So I'm looking forward to that. So, so the first thing, so just so you know too, these are some topics that, Patria and Janelle have put together. So I'm just really here hosting this. So I really want to make sure I give them props for everything that they've put together. So
we're giving you props because you're going to keep us on track.
That's right. I'm the timekeeper.
Exactly.
So how has the intersection of your identities, you have more than one sense of who you are in this world that we live in, and how has the intersection of your identities shaped your understanding and like your experience of your own mental health? And I'll ask that to Patria, actually.
Yeah, the intersection. I mean, they're the intersection of being queer, the intersection of being Filipino, the mental health condition that I have. I have schizoaffective disorder, and all of those things are, the nuances within it just make me a very, I have a keen like observation, or I see the world in a very, very specific and unique way. I think beyond sometimes more than what I would like to see, just because I'm so out there in various different ways that I'm like, oh, okay, here, I feel like I'm within the mental health uh aspect of it, the whether it's within the type of treatment I seek, which is very specific. And I'm, lucky to have started with a group of practitioners who were Filipino, and that made a huge difference. So that cultural competency, like 20 years ago, and the start of my journey was an important thing. And today, what is more so important is the community that surrounds me. My queer family, my queer chosen family that lifts me up and holds space for me. And the other part of that is within NAMI-G, like that's a whole other community. And so I feel like in this webinar, we're kind of like bridging together all these different facets of that intersectionality that I exist in. And it's a challenging thing sometimes, but it's also a powerful thing, because that allows for things to come together.
I really love that, Patria. I didn't realize you had mental health providers who were Filipino. That really warmed my heart to hear that. And that's so
both
unique.
Therapist and psychiatrist.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Both your therapist and psychologist.
That's rare.
Oh, yeah.
So shout out to San Mateo County Mental Health. That was like 20 plus years ago. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, they're both retired now.
Oh my God. So Janelle, how about you? How's the intersection of your identities really informed your experience of mental health?
Totally. Well, I identify as a strong Black woman, copyright DM, from a lineage of a long lineage of strong Black women who had no other choice but to be that. Probably I identify as exhausted and enthusiastic, despite, but I use pronouns she, her, they, them, he, him if I'm in drag, and pretty much everything. I'm cool. I'm whatever we're doing. I'm an alien, to be honest. But mental health wise, yeah, I have my official diagnoses. Let's see, to count them. We got ADHD. We got generalized anxiety disorder. We got major depressive disorder. We got OCD, probably a little bit of trichotillomania, and I'm starting to suspect truly autism spectrum. As we all have learned, like lately, there's been a lot about mental health stuff that we didn't know when we were younger. We didn't have access to. There's been a lot more information proliferating everywhere, and maybe more opportunities to understand a little bit more about yourself in ways where you can check out some, other people experiencing similar things and be like, wait a second, maybe I could look into that. Maybe that is describing my experience. Hold on.
Okay. Well, is there a specific challenge that's faced, like how you as a queer individual have like moved through how have you moved through some of these challenges?
So to get to the last part of the intersection of my identities, I am also again, I'm Black, I'm a woman, or a female bodied, like, or whatever, and being queer, Black, and a woman, and mentally ill have presented its own very unique intersection of prejudices that have come up, and intersection of limited abilities to advocate for yourself in ways that don't end up with you seeming like the quote unquote angry Black woman, the quote unquote crazy, like radical person. And I would say that's caused me probably a lot of issues in life, very much with figures of authority, with men, period, with just lots of different elements. But I would say, honestly, finding moments of being able to connect deeper into my community, to find like-minded folks going through similar situations to be able to share with. And truly through the practice of somatics, which has really been saving my life lately. Somatics is something we're going to get into at the end. We got to the beginning. It's a practice of, the connection between the body and the mind. But yeah, I'll be talking a little bit about some other stuff later. But yeah, I've found it really important to be able to speak out about your experiences, to share them with others and loved ones, and to remember that you're not alone, and not to feed the instinct to hide away.
Yeah.
Because I get that.
Yeah, it's easy to feel isolated in the midst of knowing there's an abundance of community present and resources present. It can be overwhelming. It's easier to withdraw than put yourself out there vulnerably, because already as queer people, the minute we're actively out there, and it is sometimes that the mere fact of our existence in many ways has only been met with an active form of policy, you name it, on all different forms, being almost criminalized in a lot of ways, like actively government creating policies against us, or just because we're out there
for being allowed.
And I think what mental health that I still mental health care, I think the community and family, like the friendships, between Jen and myself, I think my life without the collective, especially within my queer chosen family, and then the extension of that, and how that energy ripples, throughout the other spaces I'm a part of. So it's important only for me to advocate for my needs, but also the needs of people who may not have that ability to advocate for. So I think that's a huge part, because it's actively getting very stressful out there. I'm not I'm not going to deny that I've been in very grand ways and small ways, just trying to live a daily life, and then try to manage mental health conditions, and try to stand my ground, and also I don't want to feel numbed out. At the same time, I want to experience life. But at the same time, life can be so demanding and violent, where you just ultimately want to shut down. But it's so important to stay open to that. And by having like safe containers to express those feelings, whether it's through Janelle's somatic movement practice and the art, trying to live quote unquote artful life, and staying connected to the ones you love, and just trying to maintain that is such an important thing. So there's so many things coming around that, I feel like things like this are important too. So
exactly. Yeah.
You touched on some of those things that Janelle actually kind of brought up, where the different identities make it so that you're actively out there, like Patria said, and that sometimes people can respond to, an angry Black woman, or just being queer, that you can be sort of treated in other ways, or, have complete, prejudice. And that can even go to the level of violence. I mean, it wasn't really until just for the LGBT. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it often does, unfortunately, escalates to the level where, where queer bodies are in physical danger. There's been a lot of progress in many levels, but in so many parts of this country, and even parts of quote unquote progressive cities like LA or New York or whatever, like our brethren, our queer brothers, sisters, and they thems are in danger, and are often in danger every day just for being themselves in public. And the amount, like
and also we're using queer as umbrella. You know,
Yeah.
you know, we're speaking from our specific individual queer experiences, but queer people who identify queer is also another expansive way of, you know, identifying themselves in addition to whatever else they may, you know, the intersection of that as well.
Exactly.
So,
Which is an important, I like that you brought that up, the umbrella term, because it's funny, I was gonna bring this up actually on the same point. I've been listening to RuPaul's book Guru lately. I don't know if y'all know RuPaul, absolutely the most, she would say, drag queen. I am the most famous drag queen in the world, darling. But she wrote a book called Guru. It's got some really beautiful insights. She talked a lot about, she was like, you know, in some circles I was considered too white for my black friends. I was considered too femme for my gay friends. I was considered too gay for my black friends. I was considered too this for that. And like, and it is really fascinating, like how I know I really relate to that specifically. But I know that each one of us has our own intersection of identities that are often at odds culturally, either with each other or within ourselves. And it's a lot to hold, like, especially when you think about, like, you know, we as queer people, we have learned the hugely beneficial and amazing and necessary element of queer family and found family. It is my little brother's favorite genre of books, and who is actually joining us here today. Hi, Soleil. But yeah, we have queer family, we have found family in many cases because we've had to, because our very own families. I feel very lucky. My family has been just really almost too supportive, I will say. But in some ways, but what do you call it? There are lots of us who have not been so lucky and have had to abandon our families altogether for our safety purposes and seek that comfort, familiarity, and family bond in other folks. And that's one of the other reasons why queer community is so important, because you never know what somebody might be facing with, like dealing with outside of your individual interaction. And, you know, just lead with kindness, because you really just never know what's going on. And I always say, you know, there's always an extra seat at my table for anybody who needs it, because you literally just never know who does. And that's something I feel grateful to have learned from my mama, learned it from her mama. No matter what color, creed, sexuality, whatever you are, you're welcome at my table, and you're welcome here with us in this webinar. Let's go.
Oh, that's excellent. That's amazing that your mom is so accepting, and that your family is so accepting, and that you're spreading that love for those of us who don't really have so much of that going on, and which is such a common thing, unfortunately. And I agree with what you're saying too. Like, I guess I'm thinking about a bunch of things all at once, but you know, it wasn't until 2003 that the criminalization of homosexuality was actually federally abolished in the U.S. So, you know,
it's so recent.
That was, yeah, it wasn't that long ago, right? And
it wasn't that long ago. How long ago was it still considered a mental illness in the DSM-5? Or was it
up until very recently. Yeah, it was only 2013 or something like that. That they finally took it out. Yeah, it was, but yeah, it's been illegal. It's been pathologized. Yeah, it was 2013 that the DSM removed homosexuality and gender nonconformity as types of mental illness. So, so it's these are all new ideas, and you know, they even finally made it just 2 years ago. They made it illegal to for a licensed therapist to actually do conversion therapy, but that was only 2 years ago, and that's why there's all this legislation now that's fighting that. So, and I mean, that really is a basic right, that you shouldn't have to be subjected to that kind of thing. So, and I just want to say too, that just bringing it back to the family and the chosen family or that kind of thing. I mean, and also the intersectionality. like it is so important the way that people of color, queer people of color, have really led the way to our rights. And there's just that can't be said enough, you know. That's what started Pride, and that's what is still hugely what is keeping this all alive. So, you know, I'm really glad that you are talking about your own intersectionality and what that experience is. And it's true too that it's still criminalized to be queer. I've seen it myself, but it's also criminalized to be Black and trans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
50% of all trans women have been incarcerated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
just for being alive.
Yeah, that's just for being alive. And
so,
it's really hard to keep a job because of all the discrimination that puts you in more hard choices on ways to make money. You're cyclical. Yep, it's so many ways in which it's problematic. So it's I just wanted to bring that back and ask, and now I'm kind of like ranting now, but I really just wanted to
I mean, that's an important part. We have to, you know, hold that to esteem is you know, the Black trans women who have led the way and continue to do so. You know, from Stonewall up until present day, you know, the ongoing battle. You know, it's you know, and I would like to only be there as a, you know, in addition to, you know, an ally, but side by side, in the fight for, you know, liberation for you know, trans people, and just, you know, starting and just us, and how that, you know, it's I get so into my feelings about it because it's so the sacrifice. The sacrifices that, you know, have to be made to ensure the future quality of life for the next generation. Unfortunately, those sacrifices come with a cost, and sometimes that is of life.
Yeah.
And a lot of those lives have been taken by suicide. You know, we have to, you know, and a lot of young folks right now who are trans and gender nonconforming, and knowing that, you know, there's active legislation to criminalize them and cutting off all types of care. You know, I think, you know, I mean,
this has real world impact, not only just on the laws that are governing our bodies, but like you can only live under a boot that's telling you you're not worth protecting or not worth being stepped on for so long before your body, your mind is literally reacting to this information, to this environment, to this constant fear, this threat, this hypervigilance, and like hyper awareness of the fact that no matter where you go, you might not be safe. And which is where the element of safe spaces becomes so important.
Yeah.
And I want to take a second to really touch on how we can all uphold the sanctity of quote unquote a safe space. Because I think those words get thrown around a lot and often are utilized in ways where even recently we've had an experience where we thought we were in a quote unquote safe space, and we literally saw our queerness and mental health like actively both thrown, like actively used against folks in the space, and thrown at like sort of used as a way to keep them further out. And like, I know that trans people often feel this in quote unquote like queer friendly spaces. I know that women often feel this, or femme-bodied people often feel this in quote unquote queer friendly spaces. I know that people who are going through something and maybe have said something kind of dumb in their lives, but literally truly need to, how else are they going to learn? You know, might feel like, oh, I'm no longer, maybe I'm not, maybe this space isn't safe for me either. Maybe it's not safe for me to learn or to grow in. but I would like to challenge the idea of some of the safe spaces that we've had in the past, and to actually take it a step higher, and take it to, I'm going to quote, I want to say, her name is Kimmy Hauser, who has run a really wonderful series of workshops and resources out of Press. And there's this term she's coined called, they've coined called courageous space. And courageous space is taking it above further, a little bit beyond just safety, where it's literally you can't say or do anything that might, because of course we want to center people's emotional safety. We want to center people's boundaries. We want to center all of this and consent. But also we do want to encourage people to be able to have tough conversations, to be able to address things that might not be, all sugar and candy and sweets. Like, not everything is often tits and rainbows. And sometimes even within our own community, we have to feel that we have the safety and the right to call something out by calling it in, by calling ourselves all in to address it, and not just to be like, oh, this thing out, but rather like, what's going on here? Can we discuss it? Can we figure it out? Can we use, to quote Kai Cheng Tom, an incredible also transsomatic healer, a transformative justice model? Can we transform what we're thinking about when we think of safety and courage, and really be aware of how we can act in moments of struggle, of conflict within our community and within ourselves interpersonally, to make that idea of a quote unquote safe space actually mean that.
Yeah, and active censorship that does happen.
Yeah,
it's wild when what is appropriate in discussing trauma in specific safe spaces are, it's okay to talk about suicide ideation, but sexual violence, all of a sudden there's a resistance to that. But the intersectionality of all of those things that one experiences that leads up to that point are so important to address. But to gauge what is taboo to talk about, like, are there degrees to that, and with queer bodies, what subject, the belief that, to believe that it's actually, we're actually calling that out against us, can sometimes be of resistance as well. Like, they don't want to hear that narrative. And, this is coming from something that's so specific to what we just, experienced not too long ago. So it was just wild to see queer person. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry to jump in, Fatria, because I love everything you're saying.
No.
And I'm really thinking about our audience too, and where you're talking about a lot of things that those of us who done a lot of activism or community work are familiar with. But I just want to ask you to explain a little bit about what transformative justice is, and if you have ever attempted it. One of the things I like about some of these models is they don't always work in every manifestation, and it's something we're all learning from. Then other times they're incredibly useful, So could you talk a little bit about a practical example of transformative justice, either where you've seen it implemented in a community, or if you've just read about it and been excited to think about that?
Totally. Okay, so transformative justice goes along with, so there's a couple different things here. Basically, I just want to say one of the reasons we're talking about transformative justice, to me, it comes from a lineage of, in this conversation, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about queer bodies being policed. We're talking about the over-policing often of queerness, of Blackness, of color, of otherness, quote unquote. And then we're also talking about the idea of creating senses of safety and also approaching elements of conflict that are going away from the concept of literally just throwing people away when harm has been done. So there's a couple concepts at play here. There's harm reduction. This often gets talked about in both drug use situations and just all kinds of stuff where stuff is gonna go wrong. People are going to do things that are quote unquote not ideal. But how do we make what happens after that as safe as possible for the greatest amount of those affected? So transformative justice, similar to restorative justice, is about literally taking it's an abolitionist framework, really, that is aiming to dismantle a very carceral and punitive justice system that takes people who have done wrong and essentially castigates them as to be thrown away, as there's not a way to make it right. It just, all you can do is punish. However, you can see from any like parenting book to like a dog training book to like whatever, never mind real life societal things, that just punitive, like constant, like just brash and harsh, results of punishment is not often solving any problems, nor is it creating any opportunities for growth or for heightened capacities for expansion. And transformative justice is a way where when harm has been committed, how can both the perpetrator, the victim, quote unquote, and anybody else involved work together to transform the harm that has been done into an opportunity to both to come back to something that can be moved forward from, whether this is from an educational standpoint, whether this is from a service standpoint, whether it means that the perpetrators are going to be able to give back in some way or have to understand in some way more deeply the root of the pain, really. Right. And then to actually address that in a very specific way.
Also in the framework of like, let's say, a mental health, like a mental health practitioner, what does that look like? What can transformative justice look like within the framework of, say, NAMI GLAC? Mm-hmm. How does that work together? I also dropped a link in the chat for people to check out with the article about it too. So how does that framework, I think that's, we do that. It's like intervention, we come together as a community with people with mental health conditions, peer-to-peer, families, like actively finding ways to prevent, carceral action against people with mental health conditions. Doing crisis intervention training, is one of those with NAMI.
Exactly.
So
that's a great example, Patria. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So these are things that we're actively doing, but they're not defined as that. But we're currently we're shaping that. So it's a great, reference point to, this form of abolitionist framework, like where we are doing that actively, as an organization. I don't, if you think of it, like nuance the work we're doing, we are actively doing that. Straying away from punishment, but more so like stepping in, lean in to the work. And, so it's important. And I think this is also another great discussion to have further in the future, because it's really important. I mean, to say the least.
Speaking to that there's one passage in here in the link that Patria has just sent over, and I just wanted to read it directly, just because I feel like it really speaks to everything that we're talking about, not only with scenarios of violence, but scenarios of mental illness, scenarios of conflict, interpersonal, intrapersonal, within our communities, within intersectional.
All intersectional.
Nothing happens in a vacuum. And so that's I'm going to start this, just read this little quote, and then we can go into our next session here. But yes, violence does not happen in a vacuum, and transformative justice works to connect incidences of violence to the conditions that create and perpetuate them. That's the key. It acknowledges that we must work to end conditions such as capitalism, poverty, trauma, isolation, heterosexism, cis-sexism, white supremacy, misogyny, ableism, mass incarceration, displacement, war, gender oppression, and xenophobia if we're truly going to end cycles of, and it specifically talks about both intimate and sexual violence, both interpersonal violence.
And thanks for reading that. Thanks for reading that, Janelle. And yeah, my understanding has been that TJ is more like changing the structure of things in general, like how we run things, and then RJ is more like for specific incidences that have already happened.
Restorative justice.
So I think Patria's example of, for example, like CIT training is a great example of transformative justice that we are actually doing. And I think that's great to look at, like, actually, like, things that we all can see in action, so that, our audience can understand it. And speaking of that, I want to, speaking of just like tangible things, what are, some of the ways that you're reimagining healing as queer folks, as people of color, BIPOC folks who are also queer? In what ways are you reimagining healing?
Absolutely. So one of them is what we're going to do in a little bit, which is a modality that has come out of my wild mind as just one possible answer to a way to address some of these things.
Is that through the body?
It's through the body. Now, I have come to that through a period of a lot of research and sort of like deep exploration, which sort of like exploring how to tackle really like how, like, with all of those things that we just read or spoke about, these are worldwide, like across all human boundaries. These are the issues that are going to be coming up again and again and again and again and again. And there's got to be, there's got to be some kind of frameworks that feel better to work in, other than just, we've got, obviously, I highly recommend being in therapy. Though, as somebody who is in therapy now, finally, like consistently.
How would you reimagine that idea of like therapy through your practice?
Basically, what I want to talk about is that therapy is beautiful. However, I think there's some frameworks that I would add into it or pursue with it that I have found immensely helpful and transformative myself. Those frameworks are somatics itself, specifically the lineage of generative somatics, which is kind of a politicized framework of the integration of the body and mind into how we can be in the right relationship with change, with each other and ourselves. And then from there, that kind of leads me to emergent strategy, which I'd found through the work of Adrienne Maree Brown. Now, this is an incredible woman. And if you're ever watching this, just God bless you for everything. An incredible, it is a framework for existence, coexistence, how to be complex in a complex time and be together in complex ways while allowing for the nuances that make each other special, unique, and can be very difficult to navigate. So I highly recommend her books, both Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism. I personally have found that, again, coming back to somatics, a lot of work starts in the body. I think a lot of us forget that we have bodies, and we're so caught up in our minds and in all this stuff, especially, as sort of technology advances, we all advance in different ways. We're caught up and we forget that, the mind fuels, or the body fuels, this all works together, and we have to remember to give ourselves our flowers, to give ourselves our joy, our pleasure, and our peace, and to regain some, to feel that connection, so that we can be coming from the most grounded place to show up, that we can show up our best selves for ourselves, for each other, for our communities. It all starts with, how can we just literally be our best selves here and now with everything that's happened to us and where we're at.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the last resource I'm going to say is the Radical Mental Health First Aid Workshops that are run by Umu Silla, or Sila maybe, who is an incredible mental health practitioner, radical. I would say, she uses this term radical, which I will define as radical means to grasp at the root. So I just want to put that out there, because I've been told before that the term radical often scares people off, but I want y'all to know that it means to grasp at the root. It doesn't mean anything crazier than that. It literally means to get to the root of the issue. And the fact that has been sort of taken as like, that's crazy anarchy or whatever. But first of all, hell yeah, anarchy. But anyway, but
how is that space being, how are you reimagining healing with all of those modalities you speak? What would you like to see in regards to taking all of the modalities you spoke of and creating your individual kind of like reimagined state of being for you? Like what would that look like for you? With all those references?
So I feel like so again, these are just some of the resources that I have found over the past little while, that I have been sort of diving deeper into this with a, renewed fervor in life, honestly, after life has thrown some curveballs. And it's been like, we need some new skills. We need some new tools. We need some new frameworks possibly to address how we're going to show up in the world. And I'm speaking for myself here, and I just know that there have been things that I've needed in order to do the growth that was necessary for me to become whoever the hell is going to get any of this done and is going to be showing up in the world as the version of myself that I would like to be. So some of these frameworks can be utilized in concert and can inform each other. And I would say the Radical Mental Health First Aid Workshop run by Umu is an incredible place to start. It reimagines the concept of care itself, how we care for ourselves while caring for others in a crisis without going to a carceral, without immediately, having to 150 somebody, whatever. But how to show up for yourself and others in a crisis is the kind of education that I think we all needed from a very young age. And instead, we were taught Pythagorean theorems and like a little bit of first aid, but we need the mental health first aid from a much younger age in a more comprehensively emotional intelligence development way. So that's my pitch for that.
And then again, it's like when you think of radical and the definition, the etymology of the word itself, going to the root, you always have to go deep in. You have to go inside, right? To really reassess like what first of all is going on in this form, my body, my mind, the interconnectedness of that, and how and then via observation with my community, and then via observation through my family, and then via observation through, in every container and space I'm in. I think it's important for me to be observant and really, really see, what are the takeaways from that? What is helping me? What is not helping me? What am I not helping? And whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all these things that, I take into consideration by just being out there, and seeing like, well, there's a need here. So I would like to find something to fill that need. Whether it's with the work, with NAMI GLAC, with the support group, with the webinars, like this is just all things in its, it's something that's been, in my heart, brewing, like things of this nature, to start, and this current iteration of where I am in space and time with everyone here virtually is a current reimagining in real time of what healing could look like. This discussion in itself
Literally
is reimagining in real time.
Yes, and I'll share. One of the things that helps me a lot is being with people I care about. So speaking of, like how just hanging out together, just being together is one thing that can really help.
Joy.
Yeah. And, there's also some anxiety that I feel like it's kind of burned into our DNA. It's coded into our DNA around social situations. And then some of us have anxiety disorders as well. And so then that kind of amplifies up that fear. And then that can make it harder to be social. So I've definitely found that, being in social situations with people that I care about is really helpful. And meeting new people too. I really enjoy it. And there was a time that I would tell myself, oh, I'm just here being myself. I don't need to do anything more than that. And no one knows how this is going to go. And I would just, tell myself that. So I remember that was something that helped me a lot at a certain time in my life, but definitely therapy has helped me. And I do, I pursue hobbies, things that I'm allowed to suck at.
Yes.
I really enjoy boring things that I suck at. So, I just have a good time with that stuff. So, but hey, Patria, what about you? What are some just like kind of practical things that you like to do to take care of yourself? Just everyday things.
Oh my goodness. Swimming. I love the water. I have to have exercise. I try to get enough exercise. That's a huge thing. If I had more energy, I think nightlife is such a huge part of the queer culture, and is also like a communion of sorts, so to speak. Communing together, coming together. I think that's a huge part of it for me. So those are, two like movement-based practices, one in the regimented way where the body's fixed in movement, and versus the other in a dance club, in a disco or a rave or whatever, which it has a more liberated sense of fluidity in the body. So I think trying to find the balance of that in everyday life is so important to practice the form of like disciplined forms of the way the body is moving in spaces, but also expressing a liberation through that movement alone, like and kind of like finding that flow. Sounds like a lot, but it's a day-to-day practice.
Saying. I mean, dancing has been, especially in queer spaces, has been just really one of the best things ever. It just helps you feel like you belong here on this planet. It's just a good feeling. So I totally get it. So, well, I know you want it. We're kind of running short here on time, but I was gonna say, did you want us to go into a Q&A now? Does that sound good? We can, if anyone has questions.
Yeah, we would love to hold some space here a little bit from the community before I shift us into a little physical movement moment to close us all out and to have our little revolutionary Kiki dance party moment at the end.
So whoever has any questions, you could drop it in the chat or you can raise your hand and choose to unmute and open your camera if you choose to do so. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop into the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to chime in and share a question about anything we've talked about. So
Yeah.
well, thank you again. Thank you really much.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So we talked about a lot of different things, and if anyone's been going, I kind of do have a question, but how do I form it? I'll remind you. We talked a little bit about different ways to organize, I guess, our culture so that it's more inclusive and more proactively understanding of people for who they really are, And I think that takes a little coordinating to get us to that point. But so we talked about things like transformative justice and how GLAC is really showing that through CIT trainings. And that's when we go, those of us who have a mental health condition, or those of us who have a loved one with a mental health condition, will go out to give a talk to police officers and just share with them our experiences, that we care about people. They're real people. And this is a physical disorder. And if someone's, behavior is like that, is out of hand, and the police are having to deal with that, then, we have these trainings. So that's what NAMI CIT trainings are. And that was such a great example of how we're enacting a form of transformative.
Yeah.
Chris has a question.
Yeah. First off, I want to say it's been a great presentation. I really appreciate the insight of both Janelle and Patri, and also Reg. I appreciate.
Reg. Thank you, Chris.
Oh,
shout out to Chris.
My question is, as someone who is trying to embody allyship, as people of the LGBTQ plus community, are there things or actions that you would prefer allies take, as dealing with you as people of the LGBTQ plus community in general, and also relative to mental health? Like, if we have someone who is part of the community who is going through an issue, like, are there any details or things we should be aware of when trying to counsel our friend or loved one?
So you're saying, are there specific things as an ally that you can provide support to your LGBTQ plus loved one in your life who's in crisis, like a specific way of engaging with them? I think depending on the situation, if it's directly impacting their identity is being challenged, or an act of violence is being engaged due to who they are and what they identify as, their gender expression, and so forth and so on, whatever that may be, it's important to kind of like step in and take the lead in protecting them. It really just depends. If they're in an emotional crisis, I think empathy and compassion is important. Just like generally to be able to hold space and just listen, just to listen. I think that's just a common practice. I think we do learn as facilitators, as help providers with warm lights and such. It's important to just listen, and not try to ask too many questions, I guess, in regards to no, I'll speak from my experience. It's more so just letting me have the space to share, and to just be heard. That's usually most of the time what I need. And if it's something specific to who I am, whether it's my gender identity, whether it's my my sexuality, and all of those things, it's important to have the framework and knowledge of that through just conversation in the beginning of within the friendship itself. And I know there's someone who raised their hand. Ali, I believe, raised their hand for a question. Also Danielle has not raised her hand. So I think it's important to be able to hold space for them, and even before any crisis begins, to just really be there to get to know what their needs are, specific needs are.
Yeah, and I will speak to that just very, very quickly. Literally, I like as Patru was saying, one of the biggest things you can do is to ask what kind of support somebody needs, because maybe if they're in a place where they can tell you, that will often be the most clarifying thing, is showing up with, how can I support you in this time?
Right.
And to advocate for folks in situations like, where like in work or in public, if you're in a situation, you hear something fucked up kind of being said or going on about, a person, about a queer person or whatever, just stand up and be like, hey, that's not cool. I'm out here and I'm telling you that's not cool. And that's my whatever it is.
And like asking for what type of support one needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. And if you cannot provide that support,
to make that distinction and say like, hey,
then apologize for the support you can't provide.
Yeah.
So you're kind of just like, I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity or the thing. Let's figure out a way together. And not to, say, I'm so sorry, but I can't. I feel bad about that, but I can't offer you help. Just be completely apologetic about the lack of support you can provide, which also adds another level of like, oh my God, to the person who may be in a situation too.
Totally.
So just kind of like just holding that space and finding the proper way.
And what I'm gonna do is I'm dropping a link into the chat because that speaks to an opportunity just to literally utilize the action plan of the Radical Mental Health Framework, which is literally you can use it in any where'd it go? In any order, but it starts with assessing the situation, the context, your capacity, and the environment, whether you're in a safe situation, whether they're in a safe situation. Centering, then, the C is centering consent, care, and curiosity. Always come at things with compassion and curiosity instead of judgment and or blame. If somebody's in a situation, the last thing they need is to hear, well, you probably should have thought of, well, you probably should have.
Yeah, but
then tackling just one need at a time, because you can only take things one step at a time. Identifying power dynamics at play, social locations and other things like that, then offering options, and then basically
what a great resource, Janelle. That's awesome. So Chris, and I would just want to say that Chris is such a great ally too. I just
no,
I think it
Thanks
is
for asking that. It's a great opportunity to show it.
Asks is usually someone who's an ally. And but I just want to say, I know it takes someone who is this like level of compassion, like, it's a really, I don't know, I admire you. But
a lot of times too, it's like, to be asked, it sometimes it does take a toll when, it becomes so, it's important to be able to share this information and educate. But at the same time, that if that becomes a constant thing, then it's just like this repetitive pattern that just keeps on manifesting itself in regards to support. It's ultimately up to the person themselves to actively pursue the knowledge to at least get like some type of language or framework to address that for the ones that are in their life who are part of that community. I think yes.
Who did you say had another question?
I
think Allie was raising their hand. Okay. I was wondering if it was still if
Is anyone... Allie? Okay, Danielle definitely is here. I didn't see Allie though. So we'll go to Danielle. How about?
Okay. Feel free to unmute.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you. This is so wonderful and enlightening, and I'm just so appreciative, honestly.
God, you.
I have a question. And it's to everyone. When can you give an example of when somebody who was an ally or somebody who maybe wasn't an ally, somebody made you feel you were in a safe space when you initially did not feel safe, where it turned the situation into feeling that you were in a safe space when initially that was not where you felt you were.
So I
That's
think
a good question.
what I can speak upon that, is it's so important, because sometimes I put on like a guard and to go into spaces, and and I'm like, what I've discovered is that sometimes what may seem to me as because I actively am hyper vigilant. I'm very aware of my surroundings a lot, experiencing violence as, I'm not femme presenting at the moment, but when I have any space I step into, you know, based on my outward expression, has put me in danger, physical danger at that. So going into spaces can be very tricky, and depending who's in that space, I really have to gauge it before I truly feel open to bring my whole self into those spaces. One space would be, I'm like so grateful to be a part of the Cal Hope team, because I mean, Danielle, come on, like all of you, I've grown with you all, I think, throughout the course of time that we've been together, and who I think the guy is on here, and Rand and Don, like we've all, I've learned to embrace you all more, and embrace even my own self in that space. Like you know what I mean? Like I have to trust myself to be open enough. And that's based off of like trauma. That's based off of the experience that I've had in spaces where I've been rejected, or violence has physically been, put upon me, like things of that nature. So, a lot of it is like very protective, and I feel like, the group that I'm a part of right now, the Cal Hope Cohort, has been they've been such an important part of, me receiving, and also them opening up for them to receive me at the same time. And that's a constant dialogue that is being had even within our own cohort. And that alone, in so many different various ways, from the very beginning and up until now, it's like the discussions we've have only been of utmost importance to what it means to be in spaces, period, right? Whether, specifically mental health spaces, and how that opens up to the broader collective shared space. Mm-hmm. So, I think, to bring it back to the question, yes, that my Cal Hope cohort has been such an embracing, loving and accepting group of people to share with, even on virtual points.
I think it comes down to consideration. I like to think about like consideration in general, just awareness. Like if you're in a space, and I like to think that this is true of like for differently abled people, as well as people of different. Maybe you're in a place where it's predominantly like your culture, and then there's somebody that is not of that culture or something, or if it's predominantly straight and there's a queer person, just like the awareness to be like, to reach out and to be like, hey, to literally invite a person in, whether that's with your words or your like, or your body, and obviously center consent. But I like to, one of the things that I really do like to every now and then, just sort of like, if I feel like I'm in a place where somebody is like, they might be feeling out of it, or like left out of whatever it is, I'll literally go over to them with like, maybe I'll bring them a drink or a snack or something or whatever. And I'll just be like, I'll like go over them and crack some joke about whatever's going on, and be like, get a load of this, huh? You know what I'm talking about? Like, what's going on here? And just sort of like bring them into the conversation in even the tiniest ways. Like even the little goofiest things can help somebody feel like they belong there, just to be like, oh my God, isn't this crazy? Like, so what do you think about this? Yeah. Literally just ask somebody like, so what do you think about all this? Like, what would you like going on here?
No, Janelle, yeah. I've found myself doing the same thing too. And it brings me back to what you mentioned about your mom saying that everyone is welcome at her table, and, you know, really being raised with that sort of mentality. And that really brings me back to, you know, folks are asking, Danielle and Chris, people we care about have been asking how they can be allies and make us feel safe. And it's great that it's, you know, kind of going full circle, what you mentioned at the very beginning there. So, you know, just how to create spaces and how to be family and show that we, you know, doing these gestures that really signal that you are part of us, you know, you belong as well. So I appreciate that. Now we have 5 minutes left. And so I know you wanted to do alter ego. I know wanted to do a closing. So
yes.
Shall we get into it?
Let's do it. We'll close with our little practice here. Thank you, Reg, for bringing us back.
Thank you so much, Reg.
For keeping us on track and for bringing it all together in a beautiful way. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you, Reg.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone in attendance today, everyone who's present here, who's been engaging with us. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, for holding it down on the technology
side. Thank you, Nami Gilak and Cal Hope and all my cohorts and everyone out there. Stay tuned for more programming. Of course, the support groups. We'll be sending out a resource email to everyone in participation. But I also want to thank my lovely partner in crime here, Janelle, and they're going to take us out with a wonderful little movement practice.
So we're going to set the space up here, and Chris, if you want to cue up, if you would like to cue up the song.
Okay.
The song for everyone.
Yes, we're gonna get into a little bit of movement practice here, and so please feel free to join us. Janelle's just gonna guide me, lead the way.
Yes, indeed.
Close it out.
Okay, Chris, can we get a little bit more volume?
Just maybe.
Okay. And it might secure that. Get up. All right, now while we're figuring up here, just take a second, get yourself up wherever you are, and get your body ready to move around a little bit. Me? Right, cool. All the gentle tones of Alice Coltrane flows through you. I invite you to come and take a stand. We're gonna come, people. Come on up there. I'll be up out of the way. And we're gonna take a stand, and we're gonna, as the music gently caresses our ears, what we're gonna spend this time doing is decentralized practice in our internal, external, and eternal dimensions. So to begin, I want you to just stretch up as tall as you can, as tall and as long as you can see. And then I want you to take it all the way down to the floor. And while you're down here, let your head shake. And you're gonna shake it hell no. You're gonna say hell no to all the bullshit. You're gonna say hell no to the homophobia, to the sexism, to capitalism, okay, to the patriarchy, to everything that was weighing you down. You're gonna say hell no. And then you're gonna shake your head, hell yes, to the power, the grace, the strength, the transformative justice, the queer community, as it rings through you. You're gonna let it just flow through your bones, so to speak. And then I'm just gonna let you wiggle it out for a moment. What does your body need? Does it need to shake? Does it need to shake? Does it need to shake? Does it need to hop? Does it need to get real big? And come in with a gentle embrace. Okay? So first, we're gonna center in our internal dimension by tracing the entire length of our body. So you're gonna start from one hand, Lily, and trace all the way across yourself, centering in your internal dimension, the eye. You're gonna think about all the space you take up, and I want you to take it up as big as you can. We're gonna trace from the top of your body all the way down to the bottom. Really feeling, tracing each one of your bones, your ligaments, your body, your mind, and really feeling the internal dimension. This represents your dignity, your sense of self, the individual. And I want you to really think about all of that is you, within you, that powers you, that makes you up, that has brought you here today. And just give us some love. Honey, you gotta give us love. Now we're gonna move to the second dimension, baby. In this dimension, we are going to explore the we of it all. This is your external dimension. In this dimension, you are going to take your body and we're going to engage in a somatic practice of bone squeezing. You're going to go all the way up your body, all the way up, all the way up, all the way down, all the way around. You're going to squeeze every element of yourself. Let your muscles, your fibers, your skin, your fascia come alive. You are very capable, man. And you're going to remember the three dimension. This dimension represents who we are when we are with others, who we are to our community, who holds us, and who do we hold. And I want you to think about that as we squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And squeeze your bones through as it comes on. Uh-oh, we lost the music now. You got it? Or lost? I don't got it. Okay, well, we lost the music. Oh, you got it. Yeah, there she is. She's going. Okay, and as you finish squeezing, I just really want you to think about all the folks who hold you in this world. Uh-oh. What? And the practice of holding each other, because that's what we're here to do. We're in queer community with each other, whether you are queer, whether you're an ally or not. You're here with us in this virtual space, and I hold you, and I feel held. I am, regardless of the technical difficulties, okay? And then last but not least, we're gonna center in our third dimension. This dimension represents the eternal, okay? I'm gonna have you to reach out in both directions. One direction reaches back, one reaches forward. In this direction behind you, I want you to reach out as though you are grabbing for the hands of your ancestors. They are strong, they are smooth, they are wise. Those who are wise and healed, I will say, not the ancestors who needed a little help, because we all go to them from the past, from the future to young. So you go reach for the hands of your ancestors, then you can go reach all the way for the hands of your descendants. You're gonna reach as far as your body will let you reach. You're gonna reach and you're gonna let yourself feel what it's like to feel the coursing of the power, the grace, the wisdom through your bones, letting your body expand to larger capabilities than it's ever had. I want you to think about your place in this time, here and now, in 2024, that you are just one body that is a part of an eternal tapestry of beings. Your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your grandfather, your mother, your cousin, your everybody, all of us have been doing this for so long, and it's been hard work to stay alive. So I want you to take up as much space as you can while you're here. And then I want you to grab onto your little space, your little power. And remember that it is strong as hell, okay? It is strong, and so are you. And you're gonna grab it, you're gonna feel it coursing through your veins, through the sands of time, child. And then you're gonna wrap yourself in it. You're gonna wrap yourself in it one moment and just let it wash over you. Ooh, wait. Let yourself creak and crack as necessary. Let your hips move around, let your shoulders, let your head. And feel that feeling of really like of you having your own back. Of us having our own back and of having each other. Okay? And that's on queer community. Okay? And I just want y'all to know that if I was there, I would literally be going around to every single one of you and wrapping y'all in a dramatic scarf and some nonsense and lifting you into the air during parts of this. But you can wrap yourself in any insane fabric that you want and blame it on me if you go to Grace. Because one thing I will say about queer joy community is don't be afraid to use the body for joy. To use yourself as a work of art, because you are a work of art, and to allow your spirit to emanate freely from thee in whatever way that looks like. Just let it out. Go, day, damn. Oh. And that's on queer community. Okay. Oh, let's see. Hold on, let's see.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna turn off my headphones and go back to regular as we come back to planet Earth. Okay, can y'all hear me still?
Yep.
Okay.
That was
Cool.
amazing. Thank you so much. It was just really great.
Absolutely. I wanted to see if as we close out here real quick, I wanted to see if anybody who is willing to would be down to put their camera on just so we can take one last little zoom photograph of what our queer community looks like today. Anybody who feels comfortable, throw your camera on and be with us in the space. And we literally are out here. And we are gonna have a one song. Hell yes. And we're gonna have a one song dance party just to play us out. All of us in our communities, in our places together.
I can't be.
Jason.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Everyone.
Y'all are so beautiful and gorgeous. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, John.
It's been such a joy. Oh, hello, little ones, big ones, medium ones, all the ones, everybody in between. Thank you for being here. This has been a magical and goofy time. Thank you for being on this ride with us, no matter where it was going. We got there. I think we got there, you guys.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Now time to just check in with yourselves.
Mhm.
After this, make sure you hydrate.
Yeah.
Drink lots and lots of water. Watch the sunset, catch a little bit of sun that's out until, the evening time. Feed yourself some wonderful food. Run yourself a bath. Give your loved ones a hug. Give your pets a hug, and give yourself a hug. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And, Yeah, stay strong.
Yeah, stay strong. Be you. Don't let anybody else tell you who you got to be, because you're the only one who can say anything to that matter. Oh, and I've gone crazy. Okay.
Well, also, don't forget the support groups, obviously, and then, the comedy show on the 29th.
Oh, yes. We got a comedy show on the 29th. It is the intersection of comedy and mental health. That has been personally one of my favorite intersections of ways to find your community and to transmute your experiences.
At the Comedy Chateau, June 29th.
29th.
With Aiden Park. So, you could find that. Maybe I should drop it in the chat. Yeah, so Comedy Chateau on the 29th.
Yeah.
And
thanks for coming out, Kathy. It was good to see you, Kathy.
Kathy.
Yay. Hello. Yes, thank you guys all for being here with us at this in our goofy gay time together to dive into the tea, baby, because we sure did dive in. I hope everybody's feeling a little more loosey-goosey in their bones after a little alter ego moment. And I hope you remember to keep that spirit alive in you as you go about the beautiful parts of your day, the hard parts of your day, the restful parts. And just remember that you've already got everything you need right inside of you. So just feel free to tap in whenever you need, and then tap into your community when you need something else.
Yeah, there you go, Janelle. Janelle's got the wisdom in spades. Yeah. All right. So I was gonna say I don't think I met you, Soleil, but it's so good to see you here.
That's my right.
And I'm so happy you had such a great question. I love seeing you, of course, Jason. And also, and Johanna, I was really glad to see you. Johanna's another facilitator who's going to be facilitating our groups as well. And Mary,
tomorrow, the first evening. How it's incredible. I'm excited to be a part of that tomorrow. It's really amazing.
So everyone, thank you so much for being here. If you I think that's it for tonight. So I really appreciate everyone sticking around an extra 6 minutes or so here, or 12 minutes. So I appreciate you sticking around for that extra Alice Coltrane moment. And it's like Patria dropped that in the link in the chat. So
and we'll be sending a little aftercare email after this that will just have some of the resources we mentioned, as well as our queer community mental health playlist that has all the songs that we listened to today and a couple others. And you can even add your own on it, because it is a community, baby. So but again, take your time with some aftercare today. Do something, give yourself a little treat, because you deserve it. I do believe that life is about taking the little treats along the way and indulging in some of the side quests too, because hey, what else are we doing? Come on.
Thank you. So with that, good evening, good night, rest easy. Till next time. And, much blessings and gratitude. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Thank
All right.